time it is?
F-U-L-L-O-U-P. We got control, we got the right, we got the vision, you lose the sight. We will never stop, but we got the drop, yeah.
What time is it? Full. We're live in 5, 6, 7, 8. Good evening and welcome back to Full Out Chats, Coach's Corner. I am your host, Steve Solberg, Purdue University head coach, and we have an awesome one for you tonight. Very excited to talk about the current status of collegiate cheerleading, what is going on right now. Obviously, things have changed since we set this up with the Big Ten announcing that they are going to be playing this fall. So myself, Tony, and Ben would be happy to chime in on that. Also have my good friend Mark Coleman from Morehead State, one of the teams right now that is able to practice, and just kind of interested in seeing what are they able to practice and just how is practice structured right now amongst the pandemic. And then two of our really good friends, Miranda from University of Oklahoma and Bruce Bills from Texas Tech. They actually had a home game last weekend. They were able to, I guess, cheer a game this past weekend. They shared some awesome videos that I'm happy to share with you guys. I'm very excited to kind of hear about what they've had to do to prepare for cheering a game with the I guess, as we call the new normal for 2020 in regards to collegiate cheerleading. But, very excited to bring the band back. So, let's bring back here. I know he was super excited to get back on the island, as he would say. Mark Coleman, Morehead State. My friend, how you doing, buddy?
What's up, Steve? Excited to be back.
Thank you. I am too. I know you were kind of sad there for about a month, so my apologies, buddy.
Hey, we were kicked off the island, but we're back. We're ready. We're ready ready to talk about COVID and cheerleading. I'm really ready for some. We're homeschooling our 4 kids, and so things are more hectic than ever. But no, I'm super excited to be back. I miss you guys, and so I'm looking forward to it. So
let's bring in from Indiana University. Tony Nash is ready to go. He is COVID free. Tony, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Steve. I'm glad to be back. It's been a minute.
It has, my friend. So good to catch up with you from The Ohio State University, which we already talked about. Big shout out to The Ohio State University, which for sure was going to make sure we were playing some Big Ten football this fall. Ben Schreiber, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic, Steve. Glad to be back here with everybody and to talk about what's going on.
And then our friends, our guests here from the University of Oklahoma. We've had her on before. Miranda, Coach Miranda, how are you?
I'm doing great. We're surviving down here.
Yes. First time as a Coach's Corner's guest. He's actually one of my first ever Full Out Chats. I believe he's like episode 5, so he's one of my early chats. From Texas Tech University, Mr. Bruce Bills. Bruce, how are you?
Hi, great. Thanks for having me on tonight.
Thank you guys all again for being here tonight. I'm very excited again to bring back the Coach's Corner and to talk about kind of what's going on in terms of collegiate cheerleading and kind of the state of it. But first, I know Miranda has only got about 30 minutes with us, so I want to go into kind of how are we preparing for games. Obviously, every conference is different, and the Big 12 obviously has allowed band and cheer in their stadiums in some way, shape, or form, but clearly not on the sidelines or on the field at all. And first, I will go to Miranda, but Miranda was very nice enough to share some great videos here and she is laughing because I know it's not what she wanted to do, but it is what they had to do to make this work. So I'm going to show some great clips here from Oklahoma's first home game about kind of the new way of cheerleading amongst the pandemic. So obviously not on the field, no stunts, no tumbling. It is true sideline cheerleading, but not even on the sideline. So Miranda, I mean, first talk about kind of the restrictions that are based on you guys, University of Oklahoma, and kind of how'd you prepare and how'd you guys come up with this game plan for what you had to do for that game?
Well, every plan I think we probably had in the Big 12 changed constantly. We do have a Big 12 coaches kind of group message. And so we were definitely shooting around kind of, what are you doing? What are you doing? And at the last second, the Big 12 decided that the away side, where the away team is, they did not want, spirit or band on the field on that side. And then Lincoln Riley decided, to just remove completely and to also remove down the sides. Basically, the first 6 rows were empty. And so we got placed into the south end zone. We were very lucky, I think, at OU that we have a large kind of concrete wall. Everybody's, so close to the field anyway. We cheer standing on the wall occasionally during games normally on a normal season. So it wasn't too different. The placement of us was different. Being in that end zone was different. Doing the twirler type of flags was definitely different for the gentlemen who are used to running them. And then, we were just trying to make sure that our seniors get as much of a year as they can, really. And we did rotate at halves, but we did luckily get to have seniors there the whole game. So that was kind of nice. This was our 9th game, right? In the Big 12, you have to play everybody and then you get that extra game. It went. It happened. How about that? We'll get better.
How much were you guys able to practice before that first game?
So I had official practice. We share a facility with volleyball. And so for the first week or so, they were very adamant about keeping their bubble and us not being inside that facility. And then, I finally got the okay to move, outside and then also kind of offsite. But again, no touching, of course, no anything. So we were spraying down signs and doing all kinds of things like that to get ready for sure. I think my 5 new freshman boys got to wave a flag on the wall one time before they had to do it for real. So it was a little seat of the pants, a little.
And I did see that you guys had some fans there, if I'm not mistaken, from one of the videos. And so how was that in terms of, I guess what restrictions were there, obviously with probably no interaction with fans, but kind of like, was there any protocols to make sure you were not by the fans? Or?
So I didn't, I started to ask those questions, and most of the time when you're asking questions right now in COVID, they don't really know what to say. And so basically we just stayed in our reporting area, which is kind of up top in our stadium until the very last second, so that we weren't asked for a bunch of pictures and asked for a lot of things. That south end zone has the ADA seating behind it. So it was pretty empty, to be honest. We had about 25,000 fans. The student section was, it was a lot considering, and it was supposed to be spaced out, but there are rumors, about the student section getting in trouble or something happening just because they all basically came down to the bottom together. So, but masks, yes, you had to wear masks, and groups that had seats were placed near each other in family groups, but far from others.
Interesting. Okay. So I'm going to show the great clip from Texas Tech, and we'll get Bill's take on what the Red Raiders had to do to get ready for their football game.
Defense, Raiders defense. Let's go, Tech! Let's go!
Roderick Thompson, the ball carrier.
So, Bruce, talk about kind of, obviously leading up, what were you guys able to do? And, just leading up to that first football game, kind of what, obviously, again, same thing. I didn't see no stunts, no pyramids, the stuff we get to do. Kind of talk about that first football game and how you guys prepared.
Yeah, it was interesting. We started August 17th was our first practice, and that was geared towards with co-ed. We already had our NCAA camp set, and so we went ahead and did that. Strict measures were taken for safety just to make sure like stunt groups, we didn't change. Like once you came into practice, that was your stunt group. And we spread out everybody across the mat. And then also we did like hand sanitizer. Like I'd walk around and squirt everybody with a little dab of hand sanitizer about every 10 minutes. You know, masks were worn. We gave everybody a mask, so they had to do that. But a lot of it was just extra time and trying to figure it out. And like Miranda said, to where we went a small group, as you saw in that video, is a lot of my veterans. We were in the north end zone. There's a little grass area that we used for the first game. Working with our athletic department over the summer, we try to come up with the best scenario, like what serves the students, the fans, and then our squad's the best. And so that's kind of what we landed on in that north section there. But we're going to make a little adjustments. We're off this weekend, but we start conference the following weekend. So we're going to make some adjustments and maybe move to the south end zone in the stands again and just kind of see. But, you know, obviously no stunts and stuff like that. So it really just stripped it down to the very basics of cheerleading, which was interesting to see. The squads did a great job as far as, you know what, you can do sharp motions. You can do your chants. I didn't have any flags out the first game. That was just kind of a trial and error process. I will be adding those as the season goes on. But it was fun to see them and say, okay, yeah, you can survive by doing your chants. You know, so next year when we add in the skills again, you can do both now, and it's not going to kill you. So that was fun to see.
Do you foresee any time during the season being able to stunt or do anything, or have you already been told it's going to be this way pretty much for the year?
Fingers crossed that eventually, you know, as the season progresses, as you saw in that video, there's a flat area to where there's enough room to do just the kind of general basic game day stunts. And so we might be utilizing that, but for now it's no stunts at games. We're say social distance with our mask on, things like that. But we do a little bit in practice, as you know, as safe as we can. So, and it's slowly doing it. It hasn't been all full skills first day. It's been kind of added on as we go through. When we tumble, we spread out. I take half the squad we split into the groups of 3 to where some of them were working traditionals and things like that with me. And then my assistant coach is one of them that's doing some tumbling technique, things like that. And then the other third is doing conditioning on the other side of the mat or floor. So, you know, we really spread out to where they can take their mask off, but they have their own panel and they're the only ones on that mat for the tumbling section of practice. But we haven't started like doing full out routines or anything like that, obviously. So we'll kind of cross that bridge when we get there. But anything that we do team wise, they're kind of in their sections with mask on all the time and hand sanitizing about every 10, 15 minutes, every practice. So.
And May just mentioned, Bill, your background is great, by the way. Man, that is a sharp background that you have back there. Yeah, with the TV. And that's nice, man. Good work. That's an excellent background. Miranda, same question to you. Do you foresee any time during the season, you know, Oklahoma being allowing some stunts or anything like that during a game? Did we lose Miranda? I think we might have lost her.
Is she frozen?
Oh, there she is. Are you there, Miranda? We may have lost her. Miranda?
You know, I would probably, can you, sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah. You there? Okay,
Yep.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, I'm hopeful, you know, the Texas game is the real big game for us that's considered home, even though it's, you know, neutral site. And that area has a large enough space of grass to be away enough from the players that I think we could possibly be on the field. But I would say for most of our home games, we're going to end up in that south end zone. Yeah.
Very cool. I mean, it's interesting how every I know the SEC starts out in a couple of weeks, and they're going to have different rules. I mean, nobody really in the Big Ten has been able to start practice yet. I'm going to go to Ben. I mean, you know, in terms of, you know, what you've seen from the Big 12. I mean, I saw the Iowa State game, and I thought Iowa did a really good job of what they did with their fans, because they had no fans. So they put everybody up in the stands. I mean, you know, just kind of, you know, brainstorming or what you've been able to plan. I mean, what do you foresee, you know, if and when, like what I guess ideas do you think you can maybe take at Ohio State?
Yeah, I think that, you know, one thing that's unique about, you know, all of us is everyone's stadium is different. The landscape that people have, how their sections are set up. Obviously, everyone has the 100-yard playing field and the end zones, but besides that, all the stadiums are different. So, some people have all bleachers, with maybe more room that they can stand on. Obviously, Miranda and Oklahoma have that brick wall that they utilize during a non-COVID year, and we're able to utilize this past weekend. We actually have a lot of room in our north end zone, behind that area that we're hoping to be able to utilize if we get the all clear. So, I think it's going to be unique to see what happens. Like you just mentioned, I'm looking forward to coming back and being able to practice when we do get the all clear for that and kind of start our return to play protocol. So cross that, we can get moving soon, but obviously today was a big step with announcement of football coming back.
Tony, I mean, having an all-girl team, obviously you're not dealing with megaphones and guys, so it's going to be kind of little bit of different setup. There's a nice setup at IU where you have like those mini football fields in the back end zone area, kind of that fan area, which is really nice, and room back there. I mean, what do you foresee in terms of like what you guys might be able to do if and when you're able to be in a stadium and things that you've seen from other schools that have been done?
Yeah. Well, I do think that, it's going to be interesting for us for sure. And what you're referring to with our fields, we've actually built in the south end zone now, so that those fields aren't there anymore. And so it's an enclosed stadium. So, there is a little room on the north and south ends. But, I think it's going to be interesting because we do have large squads. I have the squad of 36. Megan's team has, I think, just over 24 or something. So it'll be interesting to see the dynamic of if they let one squad on the field and the other squad in the stands, or if they do both teams in the stands. It's kind of all up in the air right now because obviously no one thought that we were going to be playing. So I don't feel like that's been a huge topic of discussion as far as where they're going to place the spirit programs and the band and those types of things at this point. But, I'm positive, or I'm not positive, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to, just be involved in the whole game day. I just think there's so much uncertainty that's going to happen with them announcing that, short schedule. How many spectators are they going to allow, if any, or what the auxiliary programs are going to do, or how are they going to be involved in game day?
Mark, I know at the OVC has also postponed spring football to the spring as of right now. But I do know, we talked earlier, Morehead has been practicing, and so kind of just how has your practices been? Like, what have you been able to work on? Kind of how has your structure been at Morehead in terms of getting ready for a season? You're muted, bud, and you're muted. Rookie.
I hit the mute button. I've been away from the island for so long. I forget how it works. Yeah, we are fortunately able to practice. We've been going through the COVID protocols. We're still in pods right now, which what we're calling that phase 2. We haven't been able to have full practices with everyone all together. So right now, based off their living situations, the athletes that are living together have to be in the same pods, and we're not able to mix the pods. They've got us outside right now so that we can be outdoors, and we have to be socially distanced. And, we're on a soccer field right now, so we're pretty spread out, just trying to be, keep the pods away from each other. And hopefully in a few weeks, maybe we'll get to progress to phase 3 and we'll be able to have full practices, because we have yet to do that. Technically right now, we're practicing outside altogether, but where we can mix the pods, we haven't been able to do pyramids yet. Just don't feel safe with, we have sufficient spots. But other than that, within the pods, we're able to, stunt and do things. And so that's exciting, to be able to get back and actually do things. It's been practice outside hits different. It's totally been, I've had to worry about sunblock and have to worry about rain. It feels like game day almost, we're at the mercy of the elements. And then also for anyone that's ever been to Morehead, it's been unusual not to be in the practice room, because that's just normally where we practice. But thankful that we get to do something. But yeah, no, our football season, was canceled. So there's no chance of us actually cheering football this year. I did hear some talk that we're maybe going to try to do like a virtual homecoming event, which I'm interested to figure out what that's going to look like. I'm assuming that we'll like do the fight song and do some things and perform, so that alumni can get online and do that, which would be cool just to have something in place for homecoming. And then, we're still hopeful that we'll have basketball. And so I know that our basketball teams are practicing right now, and I think all of our fall sports pretty much got canceled. I guess basketball's winter, but basketball's practicing, and then our soccer teams and baseball and stuff are on like limited schedules this week, or this semester right now. So we'll just see. Hopefully we can steer clear of having, outbreaks on campus, and we can continue to progress through the phases, and we'll see in the next few weeks. But I was on a Zoom call. Well, you were, Steve, many of you guys were on the one with like coaches from across the country. I think there were like 41 different programs, and there were like 4 of us that were able to practice, that actually had practices so far. So, just blessed and feel fortunate that we're actually getting to do things. There was a big announcement with the KHSAA, I think this morning, that they're maybe in October, they're going to let high school teams start studying. But, so there's a lot of teams that aren't even able to do anything right now. So we're fortunate that we're actually getting to do something, even though it's obviously a new normal for us.
Miranda, we're almost at 8:30. I know you have to head out here in about 5-10 minutes. So I just want to get one more comment out of you. In terms of kind of your game plan going forward, first of all, at Oklahoma, are you guys even allowed to do any types of stunting or pyramids or anything? And then kind of, before we get into the topic of the nationals, kind of what has your mindset been, since you have been able to at least practice a little bit, about possibly getting a team ready for nationals, if there is a nationals, and when that is, and all that stuff, which obviously is TBD for now?
Yeah, so we got our, phase plan going, but at the moment we're waiting on a trainer to get assigned to us. So we finally have practice space that's available to us, and finally have the okay. We're just waiting for them to decide kind of who is going to be with us. So in the meantime, the kids have just been kind of trying to keep up with things on their own. We're like very fortunate. There's a couple all-star gyms near where the kids can go in and tumble. So I have actually now seen all my kids, because, we had taken people from tryouts that I really still hadn't met. And I was finally given the okay to do, one-on-one interviews and bring them into the office to kind of talk and see people. And so I guess nationals is, it feels like that normal year is so far away from right now. I don't know how we'll get there. We'll get there. Everyone will get there, I guess. It does seem, some things so far off in the distance right now, just because I'm still, we only have about one uniform that everyone can fit into that I've passed out. So it just seems so far away, I think.
You bring up a really good point about, integrating your new team members. And so, Bruce, that's a great question I have for you. What have you guys been able to do to, I guess, quickly get your freshmen caught up, or to get them integrated within your program? Because I'm quite sure they were like the rest of us. I know myself, Ben and Tony, we haven't even been able to see our kids. So that's definitely going to be catch up. But, kind of what have you found that you've been able to at least get your freshmen caught up as best you can in such a short amount of time?
Sure, yeah, and it's been a challenge. And we started after tryouts over videos, and then we had Zoom practices. So once a week, I would have 1 or 2 veteran people come in and teach the rookies some of the traditionals. We have one thing a week, and so they just kind of learned that. And I would sit and watch. It gave my veterans opportunities to be kind of the leader and teach things. And so I kind of got to witness that a little bit. And then we had conversations like, okay, this is good things, these are bad things, this is kind of what you need to work on when we get back into person. Okay, this is kind of what you should, develop a little bit. And so, but it really kind of took those time and just kind of get to know the kids through that, the Zoom calls that we had. And then once we got started, it was interesting trying to select the stunt partners, and then for the all-girl, the stunt groups, because usually I do that at tryouts. Well, all-girl was a challenge because you can't tell the heights, you can't tell exactly what timing and strengths and stuff like that go together. And so that was a little bit of a challenge, and it's moving a little bit slower just because I want to make sure it's the right fit. But then also how we do our game day stunts with any all-girl group, they're so close and they're face-to-face. And so that's something that I'm really kind of tapping the brakes on a little bit. But at least co-ed, the guy's breathing at the girl's neck, so they're kind of facing the opposite way or the same way, they're not breathing in the same air. So we've kind of played around with a couple of options, but a lot of times it's like, okay, here's your stunt group, here's your stunt partner, make it work for this practice because we're not changing like we normally would. So it's been a little bit of a challenge, and I think to answer your question about getting the freshmen on board, it's just, this is it. You got to jump on, take a leap of faith, and we'll get you there as quickly as we can. But a lot of things have been done by video. We made a video a couple years ago of our traditionals, and so I sent that link out. And so they, we just broke it down count by count. And then we had the music with it, and so they just had to do a lot, kind of learning on their own. So.
That's another thing that's been really state by state, almost school by school, district by district is, I've heard in gyms, even all-star gyms, I've heard like they allow tumbling without mask, but you have to stunt with a mask. But then I've also heard gyms are the opposite, that you can stunt without a mask, but you have to tumble with a mask. And so there's just so many different opinions out there, and of what is the safest way to do something with or without a mask. And you bring up a very good point with the co-ed and all girls. So let me go to Tony about that. Tony, I mean, from what you can just tell and see, and when it comes to stunting and or tumbling with a mask and protocols, you obviously do what you have to do and what you're told to do, but I mean, kind of, what have you seen in terms, I'm sure you've seen other schools or videos, whether it's high school or colleges, in terms of like using a mask versus when not to use a mask, and also when it's safe to use a mask or not.
Yeah, I think that is very interesting, and it just kind of shows I don't want to say the lack of direction and when it comes to what we do, because there's so many different things happening with people using masks when stunning, when tumbling, or not. Or, I've seen programs or know of programs that, when they come into practice, they don't have to wear a mask, so at all. So, I think that just that difference of, I guess, direction is going to be a challenge. I obviously am going to listen to our administration and, what they're, telling us to do, and following all protocols that our athletic department would follow. So just, I think at the end of the day, and we would all agree that, whatever gives us the most chance to keep everyone safe is probably what we're going to do, just because we've been without so long. And, we don't want to take that chance of being the team that causes another meltdown at, your institution. So, I really, that's my athletic trainer's job, and, their job to make that determination. And I'm going to trust and back what they say.
Miranda, before we let you go here, because I literally have only a couple more minutes, because at Oklahoma, what has your protocol been in terms of like mask usage at practices, and when you have to and when you don't? Did we lose Miranda? Yes? No? Miranda, are you there?
She keeps getting stuck with those faces.
Which is great, because if you're watching live, these faces are great. I think
I'm gonna get a screen grab of it.
Well, oh, that's another great screen.
Even better, Miranda.
Even better. Well, Mark, you are able to practice. So kind of at Morehead, what has your protocol been in terms of when you have to use a mask and when you don't have to?
They are wearing masks at all times, or on campus and in facilities. And then they're even, and when we first started practicing, they would allow them when they were stunting to not wear a mask at all times. But but they're in pods. They're of less than 10. They're trying to social distance and mask at all times when they're not like physically engaged. But I don't know about y'all, but I get winded walking up steps with my mask on. So I don't know how we would expect them to like do a long, grueling practice with the mask on fully in place the entire time. So when they're actively stunning right now, they can take the mask off, or if they're actively tumbling, they can take the mask off. But then since this is a little stricter than what we started with, we're trying to get them in the habit of wearing the mask like any time that they're spotting or they're not actually engaged in something in physical activity like stunning or tumbling, which I think is good. It's whatever they need us to do, so that we can keep practicing and, try to keep each other safe. we'll do what they require of us to do. And hopefully we can, if we can get to phase 3 here in a week or two, then maybe we'll be able to, mix the whole team. At that point, we'll be out of our pods. And then and I would imagine at that point, if we're mixing, maybe to begin with, they'll still have us in masks again, just to try to limit, the exposure of, moisture particles and stuff. But it'll be nice at that point to actually like do pyramids and getting things. But that's what we've been doing so far, and seems to be working. We'll continue to follow the guidelines of, it's not just our athletic department, but the president of the university and our governor. And every state's different. And, it's crazy. Like my kids on my team are like, they get to have a stunt clinic. Like, why do they get to, like, we can't even mix pods. We can't even, and then I'm like, hey, there are a bunch of programs that don't even get to stunt yet. So let's be thankful for what we do get to do and worry about ourselves and control what we can control. And just try to do our part to follow the rules so that we can try to make sure that we can keep stunning and try to move on to phase 3.
Yeah, Bruce, same thing. I mean, at Texas Tech? I mean, you said you kind of have like these 3 different stations set up at Pratt, which is a very smart idea, trying to keep them moving around. Again, protocol that you guys have been following that you have found to be successful in terms of like when you have to use a mask or when you should versus when you don't have to, or maybe you're using it more than you should or whatever. Kind of what have your protocols been and what you have found successful?
Yeah, we wear masks at all times, other than that. When we go into our tumbling sections and there's only 9 people on the floor in each of the panels. And that's the only reason I allow them to take it off then is because when they're, starting to do their fulls and things like that, some of our girls' faces are just so small and the mask, one size does not fit all. And so we, taped up and did some things, but still they kind of move. And I just don't want to take any risk about, flying over your eyes or, whatever. So that's the only reason I'll allow it to come off during the tumble time, but then they put it right back on and they're never really close to anybody within that. So otherwise they're wearing their mask. Even when we're doing the traditionals, they're doing their masks because that's what they're doing at the games. But they are still in the gym that we're in. There's 3 floors and they've closed the whole back part off. And so our cheer mats in the middle gym, our floor there, and then there's a extra space to the right and left of us. And so we really utilize that and just everybody spread out. They use one of the floors for a personal fitness class. And so there's little boxes already marked off. And so they stand in one of those boxes as we do traditionals, things like that. So, but yeah, we wear masks, entering every building on campus. Our president has said you wear a mask anytime on campus. And so they do that as well.
Last one, just Ben, at Ohio State, kind of what has university policies been? And then I know, like, I'm sure like us, some sports are practicing and or working out, kind of what has the policies been for you guys and what do you foresee you're probably going to have to do in terms of like wearing a mask and stuff at practice?
Yeah, so, we still have a couple teams right now that are practicing that have been going through the protocol. I will say that the protocol that even the fall sports before things were canceled was pretty strict. Testing up to 2 or 3 times a week, and obviously now I believe football is going to be testing every day. So I don't know what it's going to happen with some of the other sports. I do know one of the concerns naturally for us getting back is that we are a contact sport with stunting and things like that. So that does kind of, raise the risk in the eyes of the administration, which is understood a little bit. There's some things we can obviously do that are socially distanced with material and tumbling, but partner stunting is kind of hard to do that. So, but just as with the university, that all students have to be wearing masks on campus, even outside when they're walking between classes, on the buses, things like that. I'm pretty sure that's pretty standard at most places. So, I do think there's going to be some strict things when we are able to get back, hopefully as, the science continues to evolve and the testing continues to evolve, and the affordability of the testing, that's definitely another hurdle, especially even a month ago with the cost of the test. So hopefully as those things continue to grow and improve upon, then we'll be able to kind of get back to what we're used to as soon as possible.
Real quick, we can chat a couple minutes about it just because it's new news and we don't have much really to go on as we're still waiting. But obviously the Big Ten did make the decision to reinstate football. thankfully. That's awesome. And October 24th weekend, and the Big Ten championship game will be December 19th, which just so happens to be the last day before the College Football Playoff Committee selects their Final Four. So that worked out very nicely for our conference. Ben, let me just keep going.
That was a coincidence.
Yeah, exactly. Total coincidence. But no, seriously, obviously Ohio State, some of the bigger schools in the Big Ten, but Ohio State was definitely one of the leading forces of really protesting and really trying to get some sort of a football season in this fall. Clearly, obviously, it worked. So, I mean, Ben, being at Ohio State, how was it? How was the atmosphere there? How was it, being in the middle of really, I mean, let's just call a spade a spade. There's angry people. People are very angry about the decision that was made, and they clearly voiced their opinion about it.
Yeah, I think, it's something people are very passionate about. And, I just think that, people can look back, hindsight's 2020 on the way it was handled and maybe the communication, but, I'm sure the Big Ten had the reasons for how they communicated things and why they communicated, the way they did. So whether people like it or don't, but obviously people are very passionate about football in the great state of Ohio, and especially in Columbus, Ohio. And, I think they're excited for the opportunity, for the team to be able to play and try to do their best to pursue another championship. I think it's going to help too, just with the kind of the overall morale. I think with even some of the incoming freshmen, the people that, or the current freshmen, the people I think about the most, that, imagine starting college and, you have all these expectations coming in, you've maybe taken a recruit visit, or you've been to a game, or, you've seen it, and then you come and it's totally different. And then kind of one of that things, that people look forward to, the college atmosphere is college football on Saturdays. And then, that was taken away from us. So, even I believe that we're starting off with no fans, with the potential to revisit that as the season progresses. Hopefully, obviously, as the number of cases we want to dwindle down, of the student population, and, obviously the teams playing, and as those things kind of hopefully get manageable, then, start introducing some fans. And I think that will only help our cause to be able to, start doing more and more things that we're used to.
Tony, I mean, just kind of what was your take on when you heard, that the Big Ten did reinstate football? But obviously, I mean, I'm sure like me and all of our kids, when the Big Ten announced that, they were at the time going to postpone football, it was obviously devastating news for all of us, and trying to just keep that morale up. I mean, how did you take the news about, a chance of Big Ten football, and then, a chance that, that there could be hopefully a usage of cheerleaders at our games?
Yeah. Well, first, let me start with, Ben has matured. Like he speaks so eloquent now. Like he's like, over this time away, he's just, Ben, I'm proud of you, brother.
Thank you, kind sir. I appreciate that.
Here's the thing that, whether it's right or wrong to shut things down, I know that I turned on the TV this past weekend, and no offense to this university, but the channel I turned on to was Florida State and playing. And I mean, I don't think that they believe that the coronavirus exists in the state of Florida at that time, at least at that stadium, because they were just like all on top of each other. I was like, gosh, this is so bad, because I feel like it's going to get, people are going to see this, because they're one of the few stadiums across the country that are allowing spectators. People are going to see this, and it's going to scare them, and they're going to start backing everything up. And so, I was there was all these rumors floating around with the Big Ten about, potentially coming back. And I'm like, I'm trying not to get my hopes up. I understand why they would, but I think it's an exciting thing. But I don't know. It's so different everywhere in the country. And, what is hard for someone in Indiana may not be as hard in Texas, or vice versa. And so I just think that we just have to be smart. This thing is going to happen, and we just got to be smart about it, and, continue to move on. I think that we're in a good position, and it's obvious with seeing like the SEC and the, ACC and the Big 12 all play that, it can happen, and they haven't had anything major happen, but they're gonna have cases, they're gonna have incidents. So it's just a matter of pushing through. And I think it's kind of like the same thing with us and our teams. I mean, we're probably gonna have things happen. I know on my own team, and I haven't even seen them yet, I've already had things happen. I know it's going to. It's just a matter of how we manage and move forward.
What else I think's interesting,
go ahead, Ben.
Steve, just to see that obviously
Yep.
with the Big Ten, coming back, see if the Pac-12 is going to do anything or try to follow suit. I've heard that they kind of have some similar testing protocols in place or things that they're working on. So it's going to be interesting to see if they come back to the party as well.
Well, that's what was so surprising, because I almost feel like this whole rapid testing thing, they kind of spearheaded it with having that partnership with that San Diego company, and all of a sudden they were going to be able to enact all of these rapid tests where they could be tested daily. And I thought for sure, I was like, well, dang, the Pac-12 is going to come back and the Big Ten is just going to be sitting there at home by themselves watching everyone. And then I was a little thrown off that it flipped, that we did it first before them. So it's a fluid situation, or the new normal, or unprecedented. Whatever one of those words that you want to use.
I mean, my kids reached out to me, and I just said, I don't know. The Big Ten hasn't made an official announcement yet about band and cheer, but my ultimate stance is this: even if band and cheer is not in a part of the Big Ten games right away, it affects a lot of us. But as long as there's games, then we have revenue, and if we have revenue, we can survive. Right. And that's right. All that matters right now. My boss has said it multiple times, which I completely agree with. We just got to survive this year. We just got to survive and get into next year. And, as much as it would stink that we're not brought back for games, the Big Ten is going to make a decision, and we're going to follow it. And if that's the decision, well, at least as long as we have games, we have something.
Right.
Hey, Bruce, Steve, I'm sorry if you don't mind me asking, Bruce, like, I'm interested to know, and maybe someone else knows, that, they're going to be testing these football players or any support personnel, 3 upwards to 7 times a week. How does that affect the cheerleaders? Do you have to get tested multiple times a week?
We're not under athletics, and so we don't get those testing services. But the university has a free clinic that they started about, I guess, a week and a half ago, maybe more. And so we have really encouraged our athletes to go do that. They all had to get a test before we started in August. And then about 2 weeks ago, we encouraged them all to go get a test. All our staff, we did that as well. And then depending on any results, if they were exposed to roommates or people at work or whatever that were positive, then we went into this 10-day or 14-day, quarantine, depending on the result. But that's something that we're trying to figure out, since the university doesn't do it like athletics with us, to where we have those weekly, 3 times a week is what our football team does. We're just trying to figure out the best way to keep on top of it. And then that way we can still attend games and practice and things like that.
Which that kind of surprises me, because, you would think with any type of support personnel that is, and we're all in this position, we're not, we are necessary for the experience of what we do and the fan experience. But, what we do is not it's not causing a touchdown to happen. It's so I would.
What we do is, Tony, we make touchdowns happen.
Yeah. I'm not even gonna go there. But yeah. So I just, I'm curious to hear that part of it, and what happens with the whole testing protocol, and that varies everywhere as well.
We have actually an interesting comment here from Keegan at Grand Canyon. They get tested every 10 days with the rapid testing at GCU. So that's interesting. Thank you, Keegan, for letting us know that. That's very interesting. They get tested every 10 days. And I know when I talked to my boss about what's going on, we wouldn't be deemed. Basically, football is going to have their own bubble, and in that bubble is going to be the everyday testing. But then after that, it's just going to be, obviously decided once the Big Ten decides on what we do. But I agree. It'll be interesting to see what kind of. I know some programs have like random testing. They select a certain percentage of their program, and then they're randomly tested, kind of like a drug test. They get like a text message, and they have a COVID test the next day. And then that's kind of how they're dealing with some programs. So it'll be interesting to see if Big Ten cheerleaders are in some way involved. Since we're not technically on the field, what are we, I guess, deemed or considered? It'll be very interesting.
Well, yeah, it just kind of depends on where they put you.
Mm-hmm.
Are you Bruce? Are you guys getting temperature checks every day?
Yes. Yeah, we do temperature check. Yeah, it's a little delayed or something, isn't it? But yeah, we do temperature checks. Myself or our athletic trainer will check every temperature. And then once a week, so the first practice of the week, we have this online form that our department has come up with, student affairs, to where they had to fill that out. And it just asks 4 or 5 little questions just to kind of monitor that. Yeah. And so we do that every Monday or Tuesday.
COVID assessment.
Yes.
A COVID assessment. Yeah. We're doing that too. I didn't mention that earlier. We're doing the temperature checks. Like each athlete every day when they're on the facilities has to go to the training staff, do a really quick 2 or 3 question COVID assessment and take their temperature. And they get a wristband that lets us know that they've checked in that day. And then once they check in each day, then they're allowed in the facilities, but they're not allowed to even go work out or go anywhere in the athletic complex until they check in each day. And all the staff members, we have to do it too. We have to go get our temperature checked and do a COVID assessment. And then part of our athletic communication system, ARMS network that we have, I think they have to do it every day. Like they've got to do a COVID self-assessment every morning when they wake up, just to kind of like, are you having any symptoms? Do you have a fever? Do you feel sick and stuff?
Well, again, with Big Ten football coming back, Big 12's already started. SEC starts up in a couple weeks. Other smaller conferences are starting to play. Thankfully, there's been no major, from what I can tell, no major outbreaks. There's been a bunch of canceled games, but that's beforehand. So it'll just be interesting as we go forward, kind of what the numbers will be like. And but ultimately, I'm also very interested about how the cheerleaders are treated, spirit members, bands, even. You have 100, 200, 300 people literally blowing their spit into instruments. How are they going to be treated? It'll be very interesting. And then Bruce brings up a good point. Some programs are not under athletics. Some are, or no band is usually. Bands are a student organization of some sort. And so, how are we going to be, I guess, monitoring that? It'll be very interesting. Well, the last topic I did want to just talk about, a little bit, because I love hypotheticals, and hypotheticals are always fun. A few weeks ago, all UCA coaches received an email, just basically a survey about, ultimately, what would you like to see college nationals be or done? And the 4 options were keep it in mid-January. Another one was mid-February. Another one was mid-April. And then the one that actually really surprised me was virtual. They threw out the virtual option, which I found very interesting. I'll tell you my vote. My vote, number 1, was mid-April. And then my number 2 vote was virtually. And I said, obviously, any later the better. In person, obviously, would be ideal. But I did say, as of right now, we don't even have a budget. We don't have any money. We are not allowed to spend any money. And I did say that if there's a chance for us to even attend the nationals, probably the best chance is virtually, because then obviously costs are minimal and it's something that we might actually get approved. But how is it done? Is it going to be a live stream? Is it going to be a taped thing? That there's so many questions about how it would be done. Obviously, that we don't know how it would be done, and nobody does probably. But I just found it very interesting in terms of how nationals maybe could be. I'll go to Bruce first, because Bruce is the NCAA guy, but we'll go to him first but Bruce, you had your nationals canceled last year, which was obviously heartbreaking, devastating for you and your program. Trying to defend a national title and don't get the opportunity to. And I will still tell people, 2019 Texas Tech, that routine is unbelievable. Go watch it. It's a great routine. It's awesome.
2020 was even better. I'm doing that one anymore. Too bad nobody got to see it.
Yeah. But
you know what, Bruce, I keep saying that same thing about my routine in 2020 at UCA. No one really got to see it because we were falling the whole time.
Well, it's okay. I was there. You did it.
Awkward. It's okay.
We all have those days. We've all been there, I promise.
But Bruce, you had your nationals canceled. And the crazy thing is, we're hoping early April safe. We're hoping, which is kind of crazy to think about. Kind of what is your take? What if virtually had to be an option maybe for NCAA? What is kind of your feel about a virtual option if that's what the road you have to take?
Kind of like you, it's mixed feelings. It's if we get to do it, yay. That's better than absolutely nothing 2 years in a row. I do think there's going to be a lot of questions figuring it out to make it as fair as possible for everybody. But I think it's doable if that's the best option. And like you said, I mean, yeah, funding is tight across the country, not with just Spirit, but just everything, to where, sometimes we have to fundraise to get meals and things like that as we go, and people just aren't able to do that. So another option I heard is maybe like some regional type things, to where, depending on kind of the state or geographic area, to where you all kind of meet there, as opposed to going to Florida for either UCA or NCAA. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to kind of see what those officials do. We're going to try to do whatever we can to get there if we have to, or if we have to do virtual, we'll be, the first ones logged on, watching and doing our thing. So.
Tony, I mean, I'm interested to hear your take about it. I mean, obviously, they sent out the email. I mean, obviously UCA is doing a great job in terms of trying to get all the coaches' opinions about what could possibly work. I mean, kind of, a virtual option versus a live option. Obviously, I think any of us would prefer a live option. But, I mean, I guess your take on the possibility of a virtual option, and if it is the only option, kind of how would you like to see it done?
If that's the only way possible for us to do it, I'm absolutely, I'm supportive of it. I don't, I would like to try to exhaust every avenue to try to get it to be a live event, but I understand all that goes into it. I do think that there's a lot of different ways a virtual competition could go, because depending if you're hosting a virtual competition and the live event is still happening, are those teams competing against each other? I would think and venture to say that the virtual teams would compete against each other, the live teams would compete against each other. I think that would be fair. I don't know. I just think that it's too hard to wrap my mind around that type of a competition right now. I think that that's something, once I can get in and see, half of my team for the first time and meet them, and be able to understand what we're capable of, then I'll probably start that thought process. But I think there's just too many unknowns right now to know how we would be able to execute a championship in person. I'm glad that there are options right now, that they're looking at different avenues, and just to be prepared to give everyone that chance. But I don't know. Virtual would be, there's a lot that would go into it, that a lot of stipulations to make it fair for everyone on how you do it, because you got to think about what happens if we say we go virtual, and teams like our university only has 7 mats, and so you don't even have a full floor. So what about those types of things? Or if you don't have the space, or what if your team practices at an all-star gym and they're utilizing spring floors? There's so many variables that go into it.
Ben, kind of your take on the possibility of a virtual nationals. I know you're a very competitive guy. Like everybody on this show right now is a very competitive guy. But if that was the possibility, or would you? Or the later the better type of deal. Kind of what is your stance from Ohio State, and what of what your team's at? And obviously, like I said, we haven't even been able to practice yet. Haven't even got to meet our team. I don't even know if I don't even know what my kids can do right now, and especially the freshmen. Yeah. So kind of your take on the possibility of nationals maybe having to be virtually.
Yeah, well, first, I'm excited because tomorrow I get to have my first team meeting. We're actually meeting at our soccer stadium. They're going to be 6 to 10 feet apart in the bleachers, and I'll be standing on the field kind of addressing them. Just excited to not have to do the first meeting over Zoom. So, not all of our meetings moving forward will be like that, but it's going to be nice to see them in person. So, obviously, like we've all said, I would definitely prefer an in-person competition, but I do think that my personal take, so there's, this is just my opinion, I think that finances will, and if it takes place in April, I personally think finances will probably be a bigger factor than COVID at that point. I could be 100% wrong. COVID could still be rampant, but I personally think finances will be a bigger issue. So, I think that, as we get closer and, as science continues to evolve, like I talked about earlier, it'll be interesting to see how many teams are able to go in person. I think that'll kind of make a factor. Is it, 70% can go in person, or is it only 30% can go in person? I would be strongly in favor of the regional type thing. I think you could, be able to support some other teams that maybe you don't have the best relationships with or don't know that well. If needed, I think you could still do that in certain places and stay socially distant. And obviously, like based on Tony's point, if it's a finance thing, it sure would be a lot cheaper to go somewhere, maybe just an hour or a few hours away, and be there for a day, or if you have to be there even the night before. I think it could be exciting. I think that, and I'm just kind of spitballing this, but if you work with your, athletic department or just university communications department in general, setting up some kind of live stream thing that varsity could tap into. And I think that, honestly, it'd be great for varsity TV, having commentators with that. All right, we're going to the Midwest region, or we're going to the Ohio region, or we're going to the West Texas regional right now, where we have several different schools. But Bill, I don't think there's too many, or Bruce, I don't think there's too many teams that close to you guys out there. So I don't know how well that would work. But, obviously there's other.
Now we'll have to travel a little bit.
We have to travel a little bit.
But we're used to it. I mean, the 6-hour day trip, that's fine for us. We're used to that.
But, you have some teams that are in pretty close proximity. I mean, even just think about the rest of us on this call.
Mm-hmm.
We're all within 3 hours of each other. You know what I mean? So there could be some kind of regional there if needed. I think that could be kind of cool to see other teams, other divisions. And then, maybe it's something that, could be played on the Jumbotron that other fans can come and watch. And I know some of this is wishful thinking, but just trying to kind of paint a vision. I think it could work for this one-off year and be successful. But I think it'll really depend on how many teams are going to be able to go in person. And then how many are say, you know what, we want to compete. We're not going to be able to make it. I think that'll kind of determine how the thing evolves.
And Mark, I mean, obviously, you're trying to get both your teams ready in some way, shape, or form. I mean, I guess, what would your take be on if Morehead had I mean, I like the idea of a regional thing too. Anything to keep costs low, I think, is going to be very important this year for all of us. And so, the realities of what you think is realistic for Morehead in terms of being able to attend the Nationals.
Well, it's always great to be the last person with, other intelligent coaches, so that I get to basically regurgitate the same ideas that everybody else already had. But basically what everyone has said, I mean, live would be great. Now, realistically, we have no budget this year, and we self-fund everything that we do through our stunt clinics, which are, fortunately, we're able to, generate normally under normal circumstances, generate a lot of income from those. But obviously with COVID right now, we can't do that. And so we will be doing like a Morehead team store with gear. So you all need to go buy Morehead shirts, rep your Morehead cheer gear. But we're going to do that. And then, obviously whatever the cheapest option would be the most realistic for us. I mean, if we, I'm on a Zoom call. Come here. You've interrupted me now. Come here for a second. Harper, come here. All right. Well, I'm in the middle of a talk right now. Okay, that's fine. Thank you, my middle daughter. So, whatever's the cheapest option would be the most realistic for us at this point. And obviously, I volunteer Morehead as a regional site. If that becomes an option, we would love to host that. But I think that would be more real for the athletes. That obviously would be a better, performance situation for the athletes. It'd make it more like a competition, and would give them, I just think we'd get better performances from the teams. It would be better than just, performing in front of a camera. I know certain states like Indiana high schools, they're submitting videos and it's all virtual, and they're going to do that. And, if that's what we have to do, that's what we'll have to do.
The return of taping.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
return of taping.
Yeah. I missed that by 1 year at Morehead. So I was helping you out at Purdue when it was still going on, and but never really had to do that. So I guess I need to go through that, and we need to do that. But I don't know. We'll see. I feel like I'm hopeful I feel like there's been a lot of progress in the last month or two, and I think we're seeing, obviously in college athletics, we can't do what the NBA is doing with their bubble. We can't do what the NHL and some of these professional sports groups are doing with their like bubbles where they've isolated the athletes. But I do think that we're learning enough that there are options where we can make something work. And I'm hopeful for the regional thing would be cool. But I don't know, honestly, when all this first started going down and there was so much, what we knew at the times about like being outside was safer, I kind of wanted a NCAA UCA merger, like go in Daytona. Like I thought that would be
fun.
That would be super cool. I mean, that would just be like kind of, I'm sure, what everybody's kind of wanted all along, like one true national champion. Like how exciting would that be? Now, I don't think that the band shell has the seating to
have to be spread out over 4 or 5 more days.
But that would be super cool. I mean, and just probably a once in a lifetime thing, but I don't know. I'm down for whatever. I appreciate that. I mean, NCAA already sent out an email and said all the dates, like they're all set to go. So I guess NCAA is going with, their dates, and I guess they're just pushing forward like everything's going to be okay, and we're gonna have it kind of figured out by that point. And I think obviously they're being outside, I think that probably helps too. And I'm thankful that UCA is being proactive and trying to communicate and trying to get input from coaches. And it sounds like obviously they're going to try to work out this situation that's going to work for best for the most programs. I mean, every program is going to be in a different situation. And, I mean, I know we were on that Zoom last week and somebody was talking about, well, that's not going to be fair. I'm like, it's not going to be fair this year. It's all going to be, it's all going to be us doing the best with what we can and trying to give our athletes an opportunity to salvage this season and especially the seniors and the ones that are in their last year, to have them have one more opportunity to go out there with their team. So I'm becoming more optimistic by the day, and I'm hopeful that that we'll have something, and hopefully it'll be live in one way, shape, or form or other, at least with the regional sites. But who knows, maybe we're going to get a vaccine here within the next couple of months, and then 3 months from now, we won't even recognize, how different was the world 7 months ago. And then think about if we do get a vaccine and it actually works and things change on a dime, like think how different the world will be in 3 months. So that's my outfit. Morehead, we will find a way. If I have to sell plasma on the street, if I have to do whatever, both of my teams will be there with bells on. So you can count on that.
So we're at an hour, but one really cool comment I just want to talk about. My full out chat yesterday was with Jalen Davis, the new coach at Ole Miss. And actually kind of ironic that he brings us up, what do you guys think about maybe conference competitions? Maybe that's, you do it by conference, Big 12, Big 10, SEC, whatever it may be. An interesting concept. Something that I know I've had the pleasure of chit-chatting with a couple people on this call about in terms of doing something with the Big 10 possibly. And definitely something that I think may have to come to fruition. And if that's maybe the only option for this year, I'll go to, Tony, I know we've had a little bit of chat about it, kind of, what are your thoughts? I mean, I guess you can also talk about kind of the roadblocks that we've come across, or I guess the differences, because not every team, even within a conference, is the same. We have UCA schools, we have NCAA schools, we have co-ed teams, we have all-girl teams. We have all these mixtures. So how can you keep it, I guess, quote unquote, fair in terms of a conference competition?
Yeah, I think that definitely has some traction, maybe some possible potential. I think that, like we talked about before, at the end of the day, unless you're fortunate enough to be Ohio State or the Ohio State winning national championship, athletic directors, they care about conference championships. They care about their conference and what they do. And so I think that would hold a lot of clout over a national championship, even from an administrative standpoint, from a university. But obviously we want to be able to go up against the best across the country. But there's a lot of rumblings going on. I hear it from more than just the Big Ten. That other conferences are investigating and trying to talk about this and see how that would work and the makeup would work. But then again, like you said, the dynamic of the all-girl programs, the co-ed programs, the small co-eds, the NCAA style, the UCA style, and then there's just a lot to be done. I think in order to make that something that is feasible for teams in each conference.
Bill, yeah, talk about, obviously maybe you haven't really had a chat with your conference at all or other fellow coaches in your conference, but what are your ideas of a possible, maybe, a Big 12 conference cheerleading championship or something that maybe the Big 12 cheer teams get together and say, hey, let's put on something just for our conference.
And we haven't discussed that, like Miranda said earlier, we do have a group chat that we all kind of talked about game day. And I think that's kind of the first hurdle. But it is interesting, like Tony and we've all kind of said, different levels of each of those. In our conference, 2 of us are NCAA at Division 1A, but then we have a couple others that are NCAA but are a lower level that just fits best for their school. So it's going to try to figure out, is 2 in one division, kind of one style, and then we have another one that is a completely other style, still 1A. Like how does that work? Does NCAA add the cheer in the middle of the routine, which I'm telling you I don't want to do right now? And then same thing with UCA. Would they want to tumble and dance and do all that NCAA schools do? So it's just going to try to find that balance. But it's an interesting thought, to do a conference one, but we'll see. I'm open to it. If that's what we got to do, we'll do it.
Mm-hmm. Ben, I know we've had really good talks about the possibility of the Big Ten maybe doing something or looking into it. And you've been a big advocate of possibly doing it. I think it'd be cool to have a Big Ten conference championship, even if it's not quote unquote really sanctioned, just something that we could do to give our kids some sort of experience this year.
I agree. I think that it's not going to start as this big magical production like UCA or NCAA college nationals. I think it's got to start small. I think that over time, and maybe some filibustering between coaches to administrators and just trying to get the word out and proving a point that, it's something that can grow. I think that, it's not going to be a traditional competition of just here's your 2.5 minute routine. I think there's going to maybe be some different divisions, different events, I think would even be a good word to describe it, to showcase the different skills. Maybe looking at it more like a track team, where there's some different type of events, and a full routine being one of them. I think limiting the amount of main divisions, I think would be ideal. What I mean by that would be, small co-ed, all girl, large co-ed, maybe even just trying to make it like co-ed and all girl, and something like that could be an idea, but I think it's something that can grow. And, like Tony said, I think that, if we can show that we're building our own championship, I don't know if the conference necessarily immediately adopts it, but I think being able to take that back to our administrators, to our university is something that can grow. And I actually think I know that the student athletes would like it, being that opportunity to kind of perform and compete against their peers, and like-minded peers in their same conference, I think would be good. And honestly, I do think there's some administrators that would like to see us do the competition side a little bit more, as long as it's not necessarily taking away from games or multiple events that are required. I don't think they would have a problem with it, as well as it being cost effective, especially as it starts off.
Tony made a good point in terms of people brag about conference championships, when all is said and done. And when some states adopted cheerleading as a sport at the high school level, all of a sudden you saw a lot of high schools start caring more about cheerleading because they want state championships under the belt. They want state championships. But unfortunately for some of those states, that means they couldn't do nationals anymore. They only could compete state, but definitely, athletic departments care about championships, if it matters, for sure. Mark, obviously OVC is not a Power 5 conference, but the OVC, same thing. You have yourself, you have Austin P, which is another, Austin P, which is a really good NCAA school, very talented. Do you think a conference championship could work, or at least an idea be thought of for the OVC?
No, I think it would. And even though, I think Austin P and ourselves, I mean, Eastern Kentucky's got a great program. NKU's got a strong history. I mean, we actually have a lot of teams in the OVC that have strong spirit programs and even strong competitive histories. And like everyone has said, I think our athletic director, if the OVC got on board, like many other, other conferences, and it was like a true conference, championship that was sponsored by the OVC, I absolutely think that would mean more to them than a UCA or NCAA national title, just because it's the conference and it would be sponsored by the OVC. And I think, Belmont, Tennessee Tech, there are so many, good spirit programs in the OVC. I think it would be not only I think almost everybody would participate. And so I think there would be a lot of participation. I think it would be competitive, and I think it would be awesome. And I think that would be, if we could somehow work that in, like Ben said, like work it into our schedule and have it be, something in addition to nationals, I think that would be awesome. And it's quite honestly not something that I've thought about much, but I mean, I've heard the discussion more, like you said, about at the state level with the teams from Kentucky that I work with. Their athletic directors, once cheerleading, for most of these schools moved under athletics, they cared more about the state titles at the KHSAA level than they do the UCA national titles. Just because, again, they get that plaque and they get that recognition, and it's recognized by the state of Kentucky. So I think it would be awesome.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much. This has been it's been great to have you guys back. It's been great to talk cheerleading and kind of the updates, and wanted to get back together and finally had something come up. And I'm quite sure in the next week or two, there's going to be more announcements from the Big Ten and, UCA varsity in terms of what possibly could happen with the nationals and things like that. And I'm quite sure we'll get back together again here in the next few weeks. And to Bruce Bills, thank you so much, Bruce, for
Yes, thanks for letting me be.
You're invited. Come back anytime.
I always watch you for. So
You don't want
it every week.
Oh,
well,
I'll come back anytime.
I appreciate it, Bill. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to put you backstage and we'll chit chat afterwards, guys. But Ben, Mark, Tony, Bruce, thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
That was so much fun. Thank you again to Bruce Bills, Texas Tech, Ben Schreiber, The Ohio State, Tony Nash, Indiana University, and Mark Coleman at Morehead State. Again, a special thanks to our sponsors, Cheer Chalk. Go to cheerchalk.us, put in the Full Out 10 discount code, get a 10% discount off of whatever they have going on. It could be bundles, it could be another sale, whatever it may be. Feel free to go to cheerchalk.us and put in the Full Out 10 discount code to get an additional 10% off. And if you liked the intro, did you like that music? My man, Mark Coleman, cheeranddancemusic.com, put that together for me. He makes excellent cheer music. So again, cheeranddancemusic.com for any cheer needs for music. And next week, I have another Full Out chat, and that is with Siobhan St. John, the assistant coach at The Ohio State, former Brooklyn Nets alum dancer, but also the author of an excellent book, Scars Left to Heal, which she will talk about her life journey, what led to that book. She has an awesome story that'll be really cool next Tuesday on Instagram Live. On our Instagram, again, at 2:30 p.m., we have Siobhan St. John, assistant cheer coach at The Ohio State on Full Out Chats. Again, thank you all so much for joining in. This was a lot of fun. We will be back soon with another Coach's Corner. Once there's news to talk about, we will be back and we'll be happy to chat about it. Have a great evening, everybody.